Okay, welcome. This is an assignment for multiple classes, so if you have been redirected here, welcome. They're all the same assignment. We are going to set up a web app. I want to talk about what that means. And what I kind of mentioned in this discussion for the assignment is, why is Hello World a big deal? Okay. Well, when you write Hello World right now, you've already got a computer that works, and you're just getting a window to pop up to give you a message. Big deal. Originally, Hello World involved I got to build the computer, put all the parts together, bootstrap in a rudimentary operating system to load the program, run the program, and now I get Hello World. And it's this sort of existential, hey, I'm here. The computer actually works. And we're going to get a little bit of that feel because we're doing something totally different. Rather than printing just a message out to a window somewhere, we're printing it across the web. I've got a diagram here of what a web server is like. So here I am with my web client, my Firefox, Chrome, what have you, and I connect to the web server. Now, if I want a web page like index.html or some cat GIF, then I go to mysite.com/cat.gif, and the web server will say, okay, you're requesting cat.gif. I can find that in my local store of files, and those are just static files like you'd have on a flash drive. Great. But what if I go to somewhere like mysite.com/login and it gives me a page where I can actually log in and the page is not the same for every user? Well, there, and in this example it says servlet, but that's a Java term. This applies the same for any language, C# or Python or whatever you're using for an application server. The web server is using an app server, and that app server will contain applications and run that. So when you go to a certain URL, the web server says the user is not requesting a static page, they're requesting a web application. So the app server loads that application and runs it. So we're going to go through that process today. Now in the assignment, you're going to see I link to either the PythonAnywhere blog, which is the article, or a PDF. Well, why would I bother to do that? Well, because in the middle of the document on the website, they go into a lengthy discussion of how to use Git. Now, we use GitHub. We don't use command line Git, and so that information is not useful to you. As I mentioned in the documentation, you can follow along on the web page until you get to the end of this section, and you'll be done. And in the next assignment, we skip past the Git stuff to actually start building a real app. And as you can see in the example, what we're eventually going to build is a blog, a database-backed blog, or really more of a comment section like any application would have. All right, what's the steps? You're going to first create a PythonAnywhere account. I've already logged into my account, but I recommend you use your login ID. So I used an RSA. You might use your student information. I use your student email. All right, so if you do that, you're going to get to a site that says do a tour. You're welcome to do the tour. You can hit skip tour, and you're going to be here. I want to take a second to say, what if you've already done this in another class? Well, here's how you'll do that. Okay, we're going to open up all these in separate tabs because you're going to want to have access to various different tabs, kind of like how you'd have a file window open and your text editor and also the window where your program's running if you were running on your local machine. Okay, so if you already have an app up, what you want to do, you can just go down to the bottom and hit delete, and it will remove that web app. Now, what if I want to save that data? Okay, well, let's go ahead and do this. This is stuff that the tour would show you. If I go to Files, well, I can see all the files on my server. And if you have a My Site folder, sure, you can go in and download that file. Again, if this is your first time, none of this is going to be there, so you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to delete my app, so now my site will look the same as yours. Okay, so looking at the instructions, it's going to look like this. It's going to say I can add a new web app. Okay, again, remember, if I look at my diagram, what's happening here is PythonAnywhere is our web server, and it's also serving as our application server. Well, really, Flask is doing that, but we're running a program inside of PythonAnywhere, inside of the Flask library, that's handling all this plumbing for us. So our application will return a string, and that string will be the web page. Okay, specifically, we're going to stick to the set name. One of the only downsides of being a free account is you can't change the URL. That's fine. Okay, we're going to pick Flask. There are a number of web frameworks for any language you might want to use. A lot of them use what's called CGI, the Common Gateway Interface. But that's not super important. Django's pretty popular. We're going to use Flask because it's simplest. If you're using Java later on, you'd use JSPs or servlets. And if you're using C#, you'd use ASP.NET Core. It's called that because it's the new version. Okay, anyway, we're going to pick Flask. We're going to pick the latest version of Flask on Python 3.6. You're probably running Python 3.8 or so at home. Anything after 3.6 is fine, but this is not going to make a difference. It's going to generate a folder in my user folder called My Site, and it's going to put the application there. Okay, that will take a moment to generate. So now remember what you're going to want to do. You're going to have 3 tabs open, well 4 including your instructions. You're going to have your Files tab, okay? And if I click on this, I can see my code right here. Great, so there's the code. You're going to have your web app. Now what I want you to notice here, this is important. If I were to just push run, that's going to run that file on a local location. That's not going to do anything. What I want to do is run it through the app server, right, as we saw in that diagram. So to do that, whenever I make changes, I save them on the Files tab, and I hit reload. Okay. The third thing, and this is not well documented, the actual app itself is found by clicking on this link, and so we just open that on a new tab. So I got my files, I have my web app configuration, and I have my app itself. Okay. And here we go. So there's my app. Make it nice and big so I can see it. So all right, that's our hello world. Okay. Good. All right, now let's go and let's make some changes. So we are going to change it to say, welcome to my shiny new Flask app. Okay. Well, before we do that, let's look at what's going on here. Okay. Well, we import the Flask library, fair enough. We create a new object called app, which is a Flask object, and that's going to hold our code. And I just write a function here, hello world, and when you call hello world, it's going to return hello from Flask. I'll change this to my shiny new Flask app. Okay, at this point, you could save this, save all the screenshots, and you'd be done. But I want to do a few more things here that I think will be useful to show you, why we're doing this. So app route, this is a Python term that says when the server goes to /, which is the root directory of the application, I want to call this function. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to restart this or reload the server. And generally this will take about 5 seconds or so. And when it finishes spinning, I'm going to reload my page, and that's kind of our workflow. Let's get rid of that. Thank you. Good. Okay. Reload. Nope. Okay, let's see what I did wrong here. Hello from my shiny new Flask app. Save. Reload. And reload. Fantastic. Cool. So what happened there is the server had not finished re-uploading the new version of the file. Okay. Now, what I wanted to show you, so again, what you can do here at this point is you could launch Word, and you could turn in the assignment, which is the URL, right? A screenshot of the code, and a screenshot of your app. But I want to do a little more, and I encourage you to stick around to do this as well, so you can kind of see why we're doing this. Okay. First of all, I can go to the three quotations mode to have as many lines as I want and I'm returning. Now, what you're going to find very soon is just having to write the equivalent of a long print statement to make a whole web page. It's going to take a while, right? Let's do that, knowing that we're not going to keep doing this. Actually, let's do this. I'll say P, so we'll make this a paragraph. You might recall your CTI 110. And we'll do a nice hello world here. Which one? Great, cool. And I'm going to save that. I'm going to reload the server, and I'm going to pull it up. So anything you could write in an HTML file that you just had saved on your local machine, you could put in the print statement. But that's not really, dynamic. And again, I have this really, blown up to make it big. Let's try something else. How about I'm going to do this? I'm going to say paragraph, and I'll just make a little space here. A equals login. I'll make a link for a login. Okay. Save that. Reload. I'm gonna leave that code up there for a second so you can follow along, or if you want to pause it. Oops, I need to make my /p. So what you're going to find with most browsers is if you write malformed HTML, bad HTML, it'll still work. It just will do things that are a little not what you expect. So I got a p tag and a /p tag just to put things on a separate line. Okay, and it's complaining that I need to pay money. That's fine. That's because I have multiple windows open. Okay. Great. Okay, cool. I'm going to click that link. And I got the classic 404 because that URL doesn't exist on my server. So let's add it in. Okay. Looks like we'll have to live with them complaining for a bit. Good. That's great. Okay. I'm going to do app.route login because that's what I called it. So the idea is what the app route function does. Okay. What the app route does is it just maps a URL, which is what you type in the browser, to a function. So think about if you were to write a program and it's like press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, and you just call a different function for each number that you press in the menu. I could do the same thing by serving up a web page with links in it and having each link go to a different URL. It calls a different function, like login, register, post a comment, all those things. Okay, so if we've done this now, we're going to have still a fairly simple app, but it at least uses the web for something other than just showing a plain piece of text. Okay, and now if I click login page goes here, and you can see that it uses that URL. Fantastic. Good. Okay, that's all for now.